Ones for books all the time?
Yeah.
Jane Turner,
Here.
Lori LaRue. Here. Teresa Blisman. Jackie Burke.
Here.
Lynn Lukes.
Here.
Sharon Barkema. Here. Don Sander.
Here.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Now we need a motion to approve the minutes, financial statements, and list of bills.
So move.
Sure.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
No, I reviewed the list of bills and, everything is okay. I have just a couple of questions that Sakura's following up on, but nothing in terms of something that we shouldn't pay, so.
Okay, there's been a motion, a second, to approve the minutes, financial statements, and list of bills. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. We'll go down to reports. Abe Mass, Superintendent.
All right, just a few items. I know it was printed in the paper, but just want to share it, and maybe it's been shared already, but I'm going to share it again. Barkman and Trust did approve 3 particular items here at the school that we're going to share that I received a letter on behalf of. For $670, our Spanish instructor, Mr. Seifert, applied for it and received $670 to go towards some books and shelves for his classroom. Mr. Schmidt also submitted a request, an application in for $3,500 for the industrial arts classroom for drawing tables and stools, and that was approved as well. And then Corey Heffner and I sent in an application totaling $8,200 for brand new tables and chairs, as we felt we needed those to kind of replace the older tables and chairs that we have down the hallway by the locker room. So with that, the tables and chairs are here. We just need to have a discussion sometime as to what we're going to do with the old chairs and old tables and how we want to work with that and where we want to go. And Mr. Schmidt's items, I don't believe have come yet, but they are on the way.
Are the tables and chairs for the cafeteria?
No,
No.
those are just fold-out tables and folding
These-
chairs.
These are.
Just replace the ones we had, and it was good to do so. Locker room project. So, the floor was redone in parts, and they did it the way we wanted them to do it. Except the colors now don't match to the parts that they didn't do.
Oh, jeez.
One's darker, one's lighter. So we had Dalton, who kind of, I don't know if he's the owner or just runs the flooring company, came in and met with us, and it's just been discovered that it was 2 different batches. Same colors, but different batches, so we got different colors. So they will be in over Christmas, the holiday break, December 27th and 28th, and they will be going over the parts that didn't get done. Supposedly they have the same batch, but they are bringing enough that should it not match, they'll redo the whole thing. So we are getting that taken care of. It's just taking forever. But we're close. January 2nd, Becker Construction will be in to finish the locker room showers where they gotta put the drain covers over them. And they're supposed to be in January 2nd. So we're almost done. We still have not paid for those items, and will not do so until it is completed the way it needs to be done. This week, we finalized the at-risk dropout application. We'll be approving that. The SBRC, we got that done, we'll approve that. We also have to have done a desk audit for the Department of Ed, and that's basically where we're uploading items as if it was a site visit, and every district has to do this. Mrs. Keene's been busy getting the elementary portion done, Mr. Fisher, and then I've been working on the rest of it, and that has been submitted, and we are done with that. So, those are just some items that have been going on and some things to share, so. And I didn't want to take the thunder from our principals and anything they want to share. Any questions?
Thank you, Abe. Sarah Keene, elementary principal.
Notes here. Notice the font. This week we have Christine at a nonviolent crisis training. That's a training where you learn to handle kids in crisis and make sure that you don't hurt anybody, yourself included. We sent Christine to get trained as a trainer. And what that will enable us to do, every fall we send all of our associates to a 2-day, a refresher or a 1-day course up in the area. We send vehicles, we pay their time, we transport up there, plus we pay the registration. Because of the timing of it, teachers never get trained and administrators never get trained. Then anybody we hire after those 2 days doesn't get trained until the following year. So this came across my desk and I said, Christine, would you be interested in being a trainer? So it should pay for itself within a couple years, just when you're looking at all the costs and all the hours. And then that will allow the rest of our staff to be trained at any time. And so that will be, that's why we did that particular thing. Got a call from the Jacobson Foundation, just kind of touching base with us, saying that it's taken a lot longer than they thought to go through all the foundation materials. Everything's going well, but I thought it was very nice for them to touch base and say, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. We'll get back together once we get all everything set. So that was kind of nice. K4 concert, holiday concert was amazing. We tried something new this year. If you went a year ago, people were standing 6 or 8 deep in the back of the auditorium. We just didn't have enough room for people. Good problem to have in that there are so many people that attend. So Aaron recommended we split that. And so we did K2, then we took a break, and then we went 3-4. No one had to stand. There were not very many, but a few seats available still. And it helped a little bit with the parking because we put enough time. We probably had an extra 15 minutes. We just didn't know on the timing. And yet we wanted to make sure with the parking that we got people out before the next group came in. So we might tweak that a little bit for next year, but it seemed to go a lot more smoothly. Then those little ones could also get home at a decent time and get to bed. So that's something that we'll be probably looking at doing again for next year. A lot of schools with that same problem, instead of splitting the concert, put them on a rotation where one of the K2 would do a Christmas concert and 3-5 or whatever would do a spring concert. And so the kids aren't getting very many concerts. I really like this option, and I thought that was really good of Aaron to think outside the box like that.
Where my grandsons go to school, they actually split them by grade. So the kindergartners sang, and then those parents leave, or grandparents, and then first graders, and they start in the afternoon and go through the night.
Through the rest of the night. So it, like I said, we had room for everyone. The place was full, so it looked good, you know. But it wasn't like a year ago when it was miserable for everyone. It also eliminated a lot of the get up and leave in the middle of the concert problems that we had. So I say we, that's not a unique to Belmont issue, that's a unique to all districts. Unique to all districts. It's a problem in a lot of districts.
Just a quick question for you. I know there was a junior high basketball game that night, and it was home, but there wasn't any high school stuff going on that night, was there?
No.
Okay, all right.
And the junior high was over before we started.
Yes, yep.
So, in your packets, I gave you the final version of the early literacy. And it's kind of the final, this is our guidance on that, basically the third grade section. One of the things people don't realize, there are not nearly as many exceptions to this as we were previously led to believe. The only exception are special ed students on alternate placement, or alternate assessment, which at the elementary, we don't have any on alternate assessment. So all of our kids would fall under the category of no exemptions. With that, that means they'll have to, if they're not proficient, they are required to attend summer school. If they attend summer school, then they can be promoted to 4th grade. If they do not attend summer school, they cannot be promoted to 4th grade. And then there's a percentage of days, and you can't miss days, very many days. And so we'll have to build that in as far as the schedule. We have to have a makeup day or something, because if a student gets sick, you can't help that. It is what it is, you know, if they aren't proficient, then, you know, they're gonna get some extra help to do that, to become more proficient.
And there's still no money in the state for this, correct?
No.
And they discovered that it didn't help the kids this year.
Yeah, the tweet yesterday that I was reading to Abe was from a very popular educator in Iowa, and it said, the results are in from the intensive reading program, and it doesn't work.
But I thought, you know, when we had our program, you had indicated that we were having some good success.
We are having some good
Okay.
success, but now we have to use the prescribed.
Okay.
So
So how is our program different from the prescribed program?
I haven't yet gotten into the
Okay.
prescribed one yet.
Okay.
I don't know, a number of schools piloted last year, and they're just coming out with the results, but it's not doing what they thought it was going to do.
And so that's what this is, that if a student isn't at the assessment, then they have to take that program in the summer before they are promoted to 4th grade.
Correct.
Is there any, and again, a lot of this I don't understand because I'm not an educator, it's not pension. And so are there assessments in place prior to 3rd grade to catch them, or does it all just happen?
Oh, yeah, we assess starting in preschool.
Okay.
And all the way through, and we track them all the way through. In fact, now we have, I mentioned the FAST program before, so that the students that are not at grade level are monitored, progress monitored on a weekly basis, in addition to the interventions that they're given during the day.
So it's a testing to see if they're proficient after 3rd grade. Then after they take the summer program, but it tests them.
So it doesn't really matter at that point.
So if they haven't gained any,
Oh, well.
Then they're still promoted.
that's interesting.
So they're gonna require us to do this, but they're not gonna fund it? And they can require us to do it without funding it?
We have Title I money set aside. That's what has always funded our program anyway.
In the summer.
And without
Okay, that
with
program.
the dollars there that used to be tied to having that program, not can be used for it anymore.
Do we have in writing the process for retention guidelines for each grade, or is it just arbitrarily?
It's, the teachers start talking about it right away, but in fall conferences, if they have concerns, and they keep in touch with parents. And then it becomes a meeting between the staff and the parents and administration on a child-by-child basis.
Is that something that, as a board, we need to do something in terms of board policy regarding this retention?
Legally, we don't have to put anything in our policy.
I know legally, but in terms of what the district, you're shaking your head, why?
I don't think you want to make a specific policy when every kid is totally different from the next. And so having a set policy that every kid has to fall under, I think is kind of setting yourself up for failure, for lack of a better term. I mean, and I don't want to say failure, but I just think a case-by-case basis is exactly how it needs to be. And
Okay.
every kid's different, and every kid has different things that happen. And
Okay.
say a kid has a massive tragedy in their family during 3rd grade and has scores drop dramatically, and you say, no matter what, you have to do this, that, and
But
the other,
then-
and they can't attend in summer, and then they have to stay back.
But then couldn't our policy have those good cause exemptions as well? I'm just thinking of a parent that is not on board with not promoting a child. Are we still gonna promote them anyway? with,
They wanna hold their own.
they don't
No,
wanna,
they
they don't
don't
wanna
want-
hold their
Ultimately,
child back.
it comes down to a parent choice on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking
Yeah.
of
We
protecting.
really can't, if a parent wants to move a child on,
Okay,
we
There's
really
nothing
can't
that's-
tell
okay,
them they
okay.
can't
Now, the Iowa law
This.
can do it in
after
third grade.
third grade.
okay, all right. I'm just thinking
Yeah,
of,
fourth.
again, you know, we have everything, we have all these student handbooks, you have to follow this, you have to do that, we have this. And so we talk about, I'm just trying to take the subjectivity out of it. And I understand that each child, but you can say, okay, you have all these different situations, but in terms of a district, we have these guidelines, and so this is where we're starting. And so then you have all these other variables that you can take into consideration, but do we need to, as a board, come and say, these are what we expect our children to be able to, I mean, we talked about academic progress in our workshop on Monday night. Do we need to come back as a board and say, these are the standards that we feel our children need to be meeting, or not? I'm setting it out
And I
there
think we
for
do that,
discussion.
you know, in report cards, there are standards to meet. And actually, the report cards, we're looking at revamping. So parents have a better indicator of exactly what it, you know, art, they need improvement. Well, what's that mean? You know, do they need to work on fine motor skills? Is it behavior? You know, and so really narrowing those report cards down to the standards so parents know exactly where their students stand. I think that's gonna help a lot. Yeah.
I think that was a great picture, place to go to school.
Couple things we've been working on at the high school. I've met with Callie and Barb, and one of our focus areas is to try and start looking at our schedule for next year a little bit and try and get that in place so shortly after the new calendar year starts, that we can have our kids look at classes and class offerings for next year. One of the conversations that we had is that our kids come over from elementary into the middle school and basically go from 90 minutes a day of reading instruction to a 42-minute period of English, language arts. And so now we're looking at ways that we can help support kids a little bit better in our reading processes and our other skills that are developed through the language arts program. And we've kind of come up with an idea that opposite PE, so every other day, we'd look at putting in a reading component or language arts component, and then every day we'd have a grammar writing component. So we'd support, and it won't be quite 90 minutes a day, but we're getting closer to that, that 90 minutes that we should be teaching kids and having kids engaged in the reading components, and not kind of having them fall off the wagon, I kind of say, literally. So we're going to try and do that a little bit,
Is
and look
that
at
still
that.
required now that No Child Left Behind
No.
is gone?
No.
Anywhere?
No,
'Cause I think we need to not spend so much time of the day on reading and let them spend more time in music and art, some of the specials.
I don't disagree. I think you have those opportunities as well. And I think you continue to do that and support them. And I think we have some great offerings in those areas as well. I don't think you take those away from the kids. I just think our kids, as I go around, we don't write well.
I understand
And if
that.
you write well, you also have a greater problem-solving abilities and everything else. And that's what I'm trying to embed. So it's not an everyday component, but it also gives some opportunities that have some additional time. I think you also have those superstar kids that are, in everything. And I think you let those guys fly. That's just the way it is. We've kind of had those conversations that, in our schedule, 8-period day, and some of our kids, they need 10 periods. And unfortunately, they have to make those tough decisions because there's not enough time in the day.
Well, and I'm not just talking about here, I'm talking about at Jacobson, that they should be able to have spent the 6th grade course again and not have to give that up because of 90 minutes of reading.
Well, I
A couple years ago.
don't have the kids giving up anything, I don't think.
That
In my-
happened 2 years ago. in high school.
Yeah, so far in our plan, we don't, so. That's one thing. The other things we've talked about a little bit about creating an 11th grade honors program in English. Looking at, again, more of the composition for those kids, helping with that ACT prep a little bit. So that is a class we're gonna probably embed next year. This year we have an English teacher. The second semester has one period that she's now available through the transition. So we're gonna do an ACT prep class with her. Still working on a little bit of the curriculum. There's some being offered through the Iowa High School Athletic Association that's reasonably priced. Probably the best in the market, is one that several schools in our area uses. Would cost us $3,000 or $3,800 or $4,200 if we wanted to go their system. That's a little bit pricey for the number of students that we have involved at this time, so we're trying to look at alternatives. Also, the new program that we're using right now for the students to do their, it used to be iHappy, so now it's Campus Cruiser. Has a program on that they're gonna price to us to see what their cost would be to do that ACT prep. They have it there, and so I don't know, that just kind of came to me today. So I'm gonna investigate that a little bit more and see what we can do. Again, trying to support our kids. And they kind of test, we had our first round in the fall, come back, and again, we want to continue to improve those scores. I think there's one thing that can help us is that preparation. We don't have that in place. So that's one thing we've been talking about. I think the other thing that we've been talking about is then possibly another science and a Chem 2 situation, possibly to try and take the level of their rigor up a little bit, and look at how that, right now we're offering a ZO and a oh, I can't remember off the top of my head right now. And we got low numbers involved with it. And we're hoping that if we transition to the Chemistry 2, because it has a direct impact to a lot of college level classes that will have more kids in it, and it'll also have direct correlation to the improvement in their scores. And that's what our hope would be. And again, that's kind of, we've got to kind of feel our student body and see what they're thinking as far as enrollment numbers. You know, if we have 5 kids in a class right now, it's the bare minimum to offer the class, and I can get 10 to 15 kids in a chem class, I'm going to do that. So we'll look at something like that for the future and see how that helps support our kids. A couple other things that we're looking at is, or I'm going to start investigating, and I talked to Dawn about this a little bit today. While I was at Gilbert, we had the class rankings, and everybody's had class rankings in the past, and always rank their kids. We made the class ranking optional to kids, because basically the only time it's really beneficial to a kid is in here if you're in the top 10 percentile. Well, our top 10 percentile is 6 or 7 kids, and that's the only ones that positively influences. So we'd like to make it so it could be by a person that they get to choose whether they're going to like to use the class ranking or if they're not going to use it. So say, for example, if I'm number 7 and I'm not in the top 10%, but I have a great ACT score, I'll say I don't want to have it because I'd be in the 90th percent or the 80th percentile of my class, and I'd lose out on some opportunities to get in some scholarships and everything else. So what they do is Iowa State, Iowa, and UNI take the RAI classes, compute those grade point averages there, they look at the ACT scores, and they make a determination where would those kids fall. And if you're in that bubble area, which I'd say from the 89th to the 80th percentile, the opportunity for you to get placed higher is more relevant, and it occurs more often. And so it's beneficial for them to do that. So I would like to have the opportunity to investigate that a little bit more here, see how it would apply to us, and bring that back a little bit. I know Barb Kazizik is going to be on that committee and help lead that a little bit too as well. In fact, in today's National Association of Secondary School Principals, they had that article in there. One of the big people on Mr. Trump, or President Trump's education bandwagon is advocating for doing away with that. And I just thought that's ironic that I wanted to bring that now to the board. So that's the other thing that I kind of focused on. I think that athletically, we've got things going on as far as our winter sports going. We have the Winterfest tomorrow, hopefully. I've been in touch with Chad Hinders up at North Iowa already, trying to figure out where the heck we're gonna put this game if we can't have it tomorrow night. So hopefully we get through the weather, and with preparation, the weather stays away from us. But that happens tomorrow night, and Callie's done a wonderful job. The kids did a nice job again this week. You can see our hallways are decorated again. I think Mr. Mass' picture probably came out better proportionally than mine did. But you know, we're getting things going there a little bit, and things are falling in place. Our lift-a-thon is in progress. We have till the 19th to get those things in, and hopefully we can get some equipment out of it. And that's it for me. Unless you have questions.
Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Kevin Stein.
Chris Lynch.
So, just to kind of give you a rundown, I wasn't here back in November, so I'm going to do kind of a rundown from November and this month and kind of looking forward to all the things that our office has done. We helped finalize our special education headcount, worked with the ABA closely in determining that there are kids or where they're all going, making sure that we're getting billed and billing the right kids for the right amounts. Attended IASBO regional meeting, and obviously attended the school board annual convention with everybody that attended here. November 1st, there was a board officers report that was due to the state. Very simple report, just basically report who our board members are, when their terms end, etc. Another report was a first semester mentoring and induction counts were due. Basically, first and second year teachers all require a mentor, because we have to account for all the first and second year teachers to make sure mentors are assigned, so on and so forth. And there is financial implications to that, so we want to make sure all that's accounted for properly. Another report that we do is a school association report, where it's mandated by Iowa code, where if a board pays membership dues to the Iowa School Board Association, we have to report all the annual dues we pay to them and any other fees that we pay to other like memberships like IASBO, ISFIS, so on and so forth, along with any kind of like dividend payments that we receive. Also finalize our Title IIA budget and application. And for this next fiscal year, we are going to receive approximately $21,000 from Title IIA. At the end of November, I uploaded our Title I free lunch report, which basically is our free and reduced numbers for the month of October. It's a percentage of all our free and reduced for the district, and that feeds into our Title I money and so on and so forth. Some professional development, 10 more IASBO webinars. Attended a 3-hour UAP webinar, which is required for me for my certification for my SBO licensing. This month has already been very busy. On our agenda, we completed the SBRC application for modified supplemental amount for increased enrollment, open enrollment out, and ELL deficit. I'll go into further detail on that. We'll go over that later. Worked with the teacher association and making sure we're on the same page for our employee cost data for negotiations. Starting that up again already, so. Finalize our at-risk dropout prevention application, which we'll go into further detail here later. Finalize our driver's ed reports. Some more things to come is working on employee W-2s, 1099s, ACA reporting is back, so we get to have fun in filing all of our 1094s. Cs, which we have to do one of those for the district, which takes about 4 hours for that one form to be completed. And then I get to complete a 1095C for each employee, whether they're full-time, part-time, sub, whatever. And they approximate that to take about 12 to like 16 minutes per form. So I'm looking at about 40 hours of work just for that. So I'll be hunkering down and getting that done, so. Along with OSHA forms that need to be completed, Section 125 plan certification with IPERS that needs to be done by the end of the year, on top of all of our monthly tasks that are due to the state as well, so. Yeah, so retail's always very busy in our office. Keep it
I
short.
have a question.
Sure.
Do we now qualify for the free lunch grant?
We need to work with Ellen Miller on that as well.
I would be interested in finding out the pros and cons of that.
Yeah.
I've spoken to Kevin, there is a program from the USDA.
Yep.
And if you have so many poverty children, the whole district gets free lunch, well, free, we're paying for it in our taxes.
Yeah.
And we need to weigh what this would possibly take away if we were to go for something like this. We missed the deadline this year, but I think it's worth looking at.
We did that at Postville. Year one was last year, and every student in the district had free lunch. And the biggest thing we had to look at, and Kevin and I talked about this quite a bit also, we just got to look at how that impacts what our lunch program currently is doing. And if we went free lunch, how it does impact with not getting those paid lunches, and making sure that it doesn't have a negative impact on our nutrition fund. So we're working on those things. We do need to have a talk with Ellen and see where we're at, but yes, we are looking into that.
I actually read an article about that very topic a couple of weeks ago, and they said, why don't all schools give kids free lunches? It removes the stigma of the kids that have to get like the peanut butter sandwich or whatever, and the negative balance in your lunch
My
count.
concern was that I spoke to Kevin about were the parents that need it, but like their pride or whatever was
Right.
preventing them from doing it. And I know that it's not that easy, because they're expensive, but I would just rather them eat
Sure.
than be hungry, and it's just.
What's the deadline for that? Is it
Well,
before
usually-
school starts?
Yes.
Of every year?
Yeah, we'll have to file for,
Before school.
if it works out and we
Yeah.
can do it, then
Sure.
we file before school year.
Kevin, did all the new employees fill out all their proper paperwork and get all that stuff signed up for that we
I
hassled
think-
through last year for months?
I am 90, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm
Yes.
95% confident, yes.
I mean, and if they didn't, they're just SOL, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one can only follow up on
Yeah.
certain things so much
Yeah.
before somebody needs to take their own initiative and responsibility. So I believe our office has done its due diligence.
Well, I mean, I thought we tried to write that in the contract.
Absolutely,
Very
yeah.
specifically, so
Yeah.
that they would know.
I've been more than willing and enabling, I have an open door policy, you know, and so, yeah. Hmm?
What was her last name?
Ellen Miller.
What is the percentage of students that qualify for the free reduced lunches?
It's-
Top of your head?
It was quite a bit last year, it was over half. I ran
50.
all the numbers.
48.9. It's part of my report.
Well, I only ran the breakfast numbers.
Yeah, free and reduced, October 2016, will be uploaded to the state, 55.39%. It's broken down by like elementary and high school, so that's like a district average. So it could be higher in one building versus another, so that's basically district average, so, yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Cal, you're up next.
I don't wanna stand up in front of the camera, can I just sit right here? I think you all got a TLC report I think in the board packet, should put it on pretty letterhead. And I mostly just put it in writing just ahead of time so you saw it, so I didn't have to stand up here and talk quite so much. And in case you had questions and something, I give an acronym and you wouldn't know what that is necessarily without looking at it ahead of time. Obviously, the biggest piece of our job right now between Christine and I is the coaching cycles. Formal coaching cycles, which are usually between 4 to 8 week process, where we're in and out of the classroom at least a couple times a week, co-teaching with that teacher or model teaching or observing with that teacher, and then we're planning with the teacher and some of those kind of pieces. So we've completed 6 of those. We have 4 currently in progress that are kind of finishing up with holiday break time, and then 6 scheduled after the holiday break starts. Between right at the end of holiday break and kind of the start of the new semester, we have several starting. So those are gonna keep us very busy through the winter. All of our professional development on the Google Classroom. I looked at adding you as students, you can see exactly what it is, but you get all kinds of emails about assignments and stuff, if you have any questions, I don't want that. But if you are interested in seeing kind of what the PDF format is that we use, I can always add you just know that those emails coming along with it. Some major projects we kind of have in place, kind of ones that we didn't necessarily anticipate, but as DE pieces have come out, we've kind of added. We're working on some new CTE requirements from the DE about creating academy hubs in our district. We're supposed to have 4 hubs, 4 academy hubs in our school and within our CTE department. So I've been contacting kind of all the local schools and seeing what do they have as academy hubs, because, for example, if Eagle Grove has hubs already on like a health hub and a construction hub and give me some terms here. You know, a business hub, you know, an accounting hub, then maybe we want to focus on something else, because the whole point is just to start sharing students across your hubs, across districts, with the hope of getting about 120 students per hub.
Correct.
So schools need to kind of start conversations where, what hubs are you going to specialize in, what will we specialize in, where would we send some of these students for these places. So there are 7 schools right now that I've kind of been in contact with that have started kind of talking about and kind of an email about what they think facility-wise, equipment-wise, and teacher-wise they could support. And that's in very early stages. There was just a webinar from the DE that came out, and so it's very early stages, but kind of talked to Greg and we said, well, let's be proactive and start figuring out what we could specialize in based on the equipment and stuff that we have. Let's see. We're working on I'm working with Claudia on the ELDA 21 test. It's the new kind of assessment piece for L students, English language students. There's mandatory statewide training that has to go out that we have kind of a plan in place for. We've been working through the LAO plan. But this ELDA 21 test is totally new data. So kind of all previous data we've used to kind of analyze students and look at L students, for the most part, is out the window. So we've spent a lot of hours kind of looking at how we look at that data and how we're going to make it useful for teachers and that kind of thing. Working on some fine art standards. There's about 3 different options out there that you can look at in terms of adopting fine art standards. We're kind of looking at the pros and cons of those.
Aren't there already written?
Well, there's a set written by the National Arts Association. There's also some local standards set out, and then there's another national group, I can't remember the name of it now, that also has their own set of standards, and it's all up to schools which ones they adopt.
I know the Iowa standards have been written.
You mean like the NAEP standards? Well, they're
The
not
Iowa
mandatory.
Code. They've been written.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not familiar with the Iowa Core fine arts
It's just a
standards.
matter of them being adopted by the legislature.
Okay, so they haven't been
So,
adopted
yeah.
by the legislature,
They're
okay.
ready. They're ready to go.
Were you on that committee? Jack, you can serve on that?
No, Leon Keener's on the committee, and Liz Fritz, the Iowa Arts Alliance.
Be nice to get a hold of those so we can kind of look at them too.
Has it been released that we can use them?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, all right.
Well, if you can get a hold of them beforehand, it's,
yeah.
Working with Pat Kelly on recertification of the alternative school, we've kind of started a whole new format on kind of how we're going to certify the courses that come out of the alternative school and making sure they coincide with what's happening in the general ed classrooms. making it more standards-based, so we're kind of working on that. Kind of working on initial preparation for a new district-wide assessment piece, the Smarter Balance Test, which will replace the former I-TEST, which is the former Iowa Test of Basic Skills. How we're preparing for that, a lot is the instructional shifts behind the teaching of the Smarter Balance, kind of conversations we're going to start having in PD in the spring. Let's see, ongoing projects, things that actually got written into the TLC grant included things like AIW implementation. We have our anchor team of 5 teachers that are on their 3rd year of full implementation. In fact, we just met tonight till about 5:30. We have all junior, senior high staff on their 2nd year, almost at full implementation. There's a fewer small groups who haven't gotten to an instructional task, but that's kind of the very ending piece of the AIW process. And then we have an elementary pilot team who's gone through it's on their 1st year of AIW tasks, working through that implementation, and they're really liking it. So it's really great. In fact, some of those elementary pilot team teachers came to Fishbowl, the high school team, to this tonight. Working through some mentoring, we have 4 pairings, 3 first-year teachers, 1 second-year teacher pairing. We're using a new pilot program, the ITPA, the Iowa Teacher Performance Assessment. It's an online learning module piece put out by the DE and suggested by the AEA 267. So we're using this new model, which I've kind of had to learn and then share out the learning with them. But they've got the first of the 4 modules done. So that's really great. We've all sent them in and kind of looked them all over and we've submitted them all. And then we're going to start some conversations about portfolios after the start of winter break. And then Iowa Core alignment pieces, which are always going on. Christine's still in all those planning time sessions, working through the standards, the learning objectives. Junior, senior high are blogging on their ICANN statements that kind of relate to their state space. I'm trying to get it in other classrooms as much as I can to help teachers kind of link those ICANN statements to some of their standards pieces they're putting online, so. I don't know that.
So were you supposed to have one more person under you to help you in high
Yes.
school?
That was-
We don't have that.
We don't have that right
Nobody
now.
wanted to. Basically.
Kind of.
We let that money sitting out there if someone decides to do it.
We don't actually have enough funding to cover that full-time position. So, we have luckily then money to do some other projects, which is great, but we don't have actually the full funding to cover it. Just the way.
Was that in our grant?
It was in our grant, and I'll be honest, our grant was written so that we assumed that the TLC funds would cover a similar to a fairly early in their career teacher, would replace the teacher that went into a full-time position. Well, then we hired me and Christine Schultz, who were special ed teachers at the time. And so we were paid out of special ed money. And then when we went to the TLC grant, we then had to be paid by TLC money rather than general fund. So that skewed the budget.
Does it concern you, Callie? I mean, maybe you haven't read this, but I read it last week in the Des Moines Register, that the schools that implemented at the beginning, that they did a study and they found that there was no impact on student achievement.
Absolutely. I worry every day that, in theory, I could be in this position for 8-9 months, basically.
Yeah,
February
'cause
15th, I could or could not reapply, it could have been or not.
I think if I'm reading that, our unfriendly to education new legislature is reading that, and that this program could go away.
Yeah, I read that too, but they had also indicated that it's like the first step, even though it hasn't had an immediate impact on the, the success in the classroom, the teachers are learning more, becoming better teachers. And so, I mean, that's what I kind of read into
No, I get that,
as well.
but I
yeah.
don't think that those people care about teachers.
I don't think that, I agree that the legislators aren't, but yeah, I think that the program has benefit. I just don't know that we're gonna see the immediate results that they were expecting to see. I think it's going to be a process, and it may not, the results aren't going to be immediate.
And like I said, it's really, for me, it's basically a 9-month position. Every single year, it gets reevaluated, and I could decide not to reapply, they could decide not to rehire me into the position. They could decide to rewrite, we've talked about rewriting some of the positions to make it what BK needs now as opposed to what we wrote 2.5, almost 3 years ago into the grant. And I've even said I'm more than willing to kind of step down if that's what we need to do something else. I mean, our goal in the TLC program this year, and we keep putting in all of our newsletters and stuff, is to help teachers kind of reach their goals. So whatever that is, we're kind of willing to do. So absolutely, I mean, if it ends the means that I go back to teaching special ed or something else next year, great. If that's what's going to be best for kids and make the biggest impact, that's great.
But you just like your
You might
teachers
need a
have
plan B.
enjoyed this and gained.
I think
A
the
lot.
number, I mean, we have 6, like I said, 6 coaching cycles starting either right after Christmas break, mostly at the elementary. Otherwise, I have 2 starting the very first day of the second semester, which will be January like 14th-ish. 2 more, and I have kind of one just kind of finishing up now, and I have 1 more that kind of said, well, maybe we should go past Christmas break and into the January some. We can't keep up. I mean, we did have to turn a couple away. We did have to kind of tell a couple teachers, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to work with you on a formal coaching cycle at least until mid-February. So I think that's great, and I think that's showing a positive impact. So we have to, not turning them away, but we just can't do a formal coaching cycle. We can't keep up.
But they'll never know.
So I think that's a great thing, but about the immediate student test scores, am I going to say that Iowa assessment scores are going to go up? The 4% I would hope. I can't guarantee that, and I can't, even if it did, I couldn't say it's because TLC necessarily.
Well, or, after this year, you won't have Iowa assessments.
Right. And after
You know,
that, it
so
won't
then you're
matter.
gonna be at a whole different,
How are you gonna measure,
well, you
it?
won't have a standard for a year to really
Right.
determine where we're at.
Yeah, the feedback that I'm hearing from the staff is that they're excited about it. They appreciate the way it's new, it's refreshing. They're using the information in their classroom, they're benefiting from it. And so anytime that you've got somebody that's excited and renewed in what they're doing with kids, because when you've got the staff that has the tenure that we have, and granted, I know we have several new teachers, but again, we have a lot of tenured staff. When they can get excited about what they're doing with kids again, I think that's important, and I think it's step 1. Yeah, I don't know that we're gonna see the results for, again, it's building.
Well, just in the short time we've been doing it in the college, right, we've had a lot of conversations. We have to tweak our plan, and we are going to write an amendment to it to tweak it to fit better what we are currently working as staff now, and potentially what may come, try and tweak it to fit some of the potential needs coming. And we are going to do that and work on it. And we sat down in a meeting, Greg and Sarah were part of that conversation, and we had a great conversation on some things that potentially could be coming. One of the initiatives that's going to help within that.
Gary Sinclair to give us our presentation for the 2017-2018 budget.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, I'll probably.
What's this?
Nothing, I just threw it. But you can look at it if you want, it's just what I gave the board.
Do you want one for Teresa? I'll put it in the wall.
Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you. What I want to do tonight is talk to you about three types of planning that districts need to do. And I'll go through the slides, but I'm going to go through the first set of them pretty quickly. When we get to talking about projecting the future, that will change some. Really, as we look at planning, we consider where we've been. That's certainly important. But frequently, districts spend 75% of their time talking about where they've been. That's like driving by looking in the rearview mirror. So really what we need to look at is where we are today and where's our future. Really, we're going to work with you tonight on 3 questions. Where are we today? how do we compare to our peers, and what does our future look like? It's interesting, if you look at slide 4, when you asked the question about free and reduced, I went to the booklet and I said, well, we've got that right here. But when I go to the booklet that I gave you, it's got the enrollment rather than the free and reduced. So the person I got that to put together obviously made a mistake on the slide, and that would be me. So I just didn't put it together. So really what I've got on this up here is really the one we wanted to see. Here's what we want to do. We want to look at, in several measures, where are you today and how do you compare to your peers. This is a trend line of your enrollment. You see you had a drop, you bump back up, so you've had an increase. If you look at free and reduced, this may be the most dramatic change in free and reduced that I've seen in a district. Going from about 10% 8 years ago to 49, Kevin said 55. It's reported different times of the year, probably depending on when you pull it. How does this compare to your peers? Well, first of all, who are your peers? If you look at this group, we have picked a group that we think are similar to you in size, similar to you in free and reduced, and similar to you in taxable valuation. And you can see that of this group, you're the second highest compared to Eagle Grove. So your percentage is pretty high, obviously, compared to this type of group. Well, so what does this matter? There are 2 reasons for you to have data. One is to help you make decisions. The other is to tell your district story. We look at the next measure. This is a view of your open enrollment net in and out over the last 5 years. You can see you've had kind of a steady decline, or actually increase in transfers out. Your net has kind of continued to increase. This looks at your district compared to your peers on the net percent. CAM, as an example, has 45% of their student body that are open enrolled in, net. Well, that's because they have the
Online.
virtual online. But when you look at your peers, you can see that you have about 11 or 12%, several of your peers on the same circumstances. This looks at your demographics over time. And you can see that steadily over the last 8 years, your minority population has continued to grow. How does that compare to your peers, the ones you're looking at? And you see you and Eagle Grove by far have a larger percent of minority demographics. When you look at comparing yourself academically, I would have some concerns with this group if I were compared to Mount Ayr, because you have a lot different demographics makeup. So you need to look at it differently. This looks at your number of teachers and the number of students per teacher. So you can see that your number of students declined in 12, and then kindly a steadily increased, dropped in 16. During the post-ARA time, the number of students per teacher grew, and that's kind of declined over time. So you're at about 15.9. How does that compare to your peers? You can see that you're about in the middle when you're compared to your peers, probably a little on the high side, but not much. The next one looks at guidance counselors, and you can see that you're probably 3rd or 4th in the number of students per guidance counselor. I would have to say, though, guidance counselors are probably the most misreported, I shouldn't say misreported, misunderstood. Sometimes they're reported as guidance, sometimes at risk, sometimes deans of student. Here we say that last year you had 1.5 guidance K-12. Does that sound about right? You have 2? One of them is getting reported as something else.
At risk.
At risk.
At risk.
So that's what I mean. You never really know on this particular tool. This is a very, now we're going to look more at some financial things rather than enrollment. This is your assigned and unassigned balance. What is that? It's just this. At the end of the year, how much money did you have left that wasn't obligated? Now, if you have $1 million in the bank, part of that is already obligated. You may owe it to teachers, you may owe it for textbooks you have purchased and haven't paid for. but it's money that is not obligated. And you can see you have made tremendous strides in the last 5 years. That in fact you went from a negative, which in 11 that meant if you would have paid all your bills that you owed, you wouldn't have had enough money. Where in 15, you had about 19% of your revenue at the end of the year that was unobligated. How does that compare to your peers? And you can see you're the second highest in 16. So it gives you a sense of your financial position for cash. ISB recommends this be between 5 and 15. Okay? The next one looks at your annual authority. I tell you what, I don't want to spend a lot of time on these slides because these are new, these are kind of a new concept we're bringing out. But let me go on to slide 17. Slide 17 is the one you will most recognize. This is, at the end of the year, how much did you have left that you could have spent, but you did not? And you can see that over time, that's declined from 19 down to 11. Now, ISB recommends 5 to 15%, not to exceed 25. So you're within that financial range. But like anything, a downward trajectory has to get fixed, because eventually it would become negative and you've got to make some changes. And we'll talk about that in the next segment. So you're at 11.8. How does that compare to your peers? And you can see you're about in the middle of that percent of unspent balance ratio. This is the most important measure in school finance because it's the one that has legal implications, it has statutory rules. That if you overspend your authority, you have broken the law, you have to go to the school budget review committee and have a workout plan. If we go back to 15, I just want to mention this because it's really important to look at. This looks at that same analysis, but on an annual basis. Every year, there's a calculation that says how much your district can spend. What this does is it looks at how much of that annual you spent. So you can see that in a 9 you overspent 3.94. In 12 you underspent by 7.4. The target is 0. You're never going to be 0. You're going to be a little over, a little under. But you can see the last 3 years you've overspent your annual authority. And that's why your overall authority is on a downward trend on page 17. Right now, of all the slides that I've shown you, this is the one that you have to be most concerned about. This is looking at your peers, we've done that one. This is kind of a new one. This is looking at how much unspent balance do you have per kid. We've never done that before, but it gives you a sense. But until we show your peer, it doesn't give you much context. And you can see that you're probably in the top half of dollars per student of unspent balance. What this does, this shows how your district spends all their funds. 78% of your district spending is in general fund. That's a little high, but that's because you don't have a lot of debt service, you don't have a lot of spending in capital projects. This looks at how you spend your general fund. 56% to salaries, 19% to benefits. That's a little on the low side. Not low, but just low average. This one is really an interesting view, and we've never used it before. But what this does, this looks at, of the salaries you spend, what percent goes to each category. And you can see that 72% of your salaries go to your teachers, which is on the high average side. That's a high percent. You can see that 6.3% of your salaries go to associates and 6.7% go to administration. Frequently that number switched around. The districts are spending more on associates than they are on administration. This is your tax rate over time. This is how your tax rate compares to your peers. in this peer group, you have the highest tax rate. The reason is because of your additional taxes, not your general fund, but you can see down below your debt service, your management, your PEPAL, those are the higher of all these groups. Tax rate is a function of taxable evaluation, not of how much you spend. This chart looks at how you've spent your general fund over time. You know, I sometimes look at this and I can't find anything meaningful to say. It's just pretty consistent. But when I go to this one, if I pick out CAM, you can see that CAM has a lot different spending pattern. Their big piece is their purchase service, which I assume is a result of their online program. This looks at how you've spent your salaries and benefits over time, and this is how you compare to your peers. And as I said earlier, the percent that you're spending on salaries tends to be kind of at the low end of this group. Here's an interesting look at how you spend on operations. So we're comparing this group, how much is spent per student on operating your building. And you can see you're third from the bottom, and you're below average at what you spend per student in operating buildings, which is a good thing, obviously, because you have more money to do other things. On transportation, you're actually a little bit over the average in transportation. Does that surprise you? Probably not. You knew you were spending more there. This is a really interesting chart. Every circle here is a teacher in one of those schools. And the gray line is the average or the best fit. If we look at Belmont-Clemmy teachers, it would tell me that at the beginning, your teachers tend to be below the average of this group, but as they go up, they get above average. So this is a nice chart to show staff that in fact, compared to the comparison group, your teachers are above average.
This is just Belmont-Clemmy teachers.
Well, every circle is a teacher in one of those schools. The bright yellow are Belmont-Clemmy.
Oh,
I'm
over
sorry,
yellow.
I should, yeah. The yellow, we pick a school, so the brighter one is your school. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay? So, we've done a lot of talking about where are you and how do you compare to your peers. This is worth you spending some time to analyze. Somebody say, well, why would we care? Well, part of it is if you have to make decisions about changes, if you better know where you are compared to people in your same circumstance, you might look at it differently. Now we're going to look at what does your future look like. And really what we did is we spent considerable time with your administration, and what we've done is we've walked through over 100 assumptions. But what we put on 2 pages are the key assumptions. And these are the ones that the board really should buy into or say, wait a minute, let's change that. Right now, you have been down in your enrollment, down 3.2, up 8.1, and up 11 this year. And we are projecting for you to stay flat. Now, if the board says, no, we're really going to go up 20 a year, I would remind you that hope is not a strategy. And we say, well, we're going to go down 20 a year. Say, well, worst case scenario gets the worst case result. Best professional judgment, this is where your administration thought they would want to plan. We can do 100 scenarios and say, what if enrollment goes up? What if it goes down? Then we looked at supplemental state aid, and we've got it at 2.323. Now, 3.232 was kind of a standard 6 months ago. 3 months ago, it dropped to 2.323, and probably the prevailing right now is 2.22. So we may want to take a look at this and say, I'm not sure we can do 2, or at least do a scenario that prepares us. The good thing, the day they set it, your administration can go in and change it, and it changes all the reports.
In the paper today, the governor said 2%.
2%
And
this
he
year.
said he was hoping that they would have 2 for the next 2 years.
But then
It's gonna be
again,
hard to get to.
it is going to be hard with the revenue estimating committee. I've heard from 0 to 4. 0 is depressing and 4 are dreamers.
If we go on down, dropout prevention, we kept pretty flat. The reason we mention that, that's a big chunk of money. That's $200,000 plus a year that you are levying in tax and spending on kids to prevent dropouts. Instructional levy is at 10% with a 3% surtax. Now, you've not had a surtax for 2 years. We've got it in the model now, but we'll see what happens to tax rate once that's set. Cash reserve, we've set cash reserve at that amount. You've had a time where your cash has been good, but it's gonna start to turn around because you've not put on any cash reserve. You put on 57,000 last year. That's the most you could have put on. Now that's gonna start to grow. Taxable valuation, we've projected at 1.5. A special ed deficit, we've actually, the special ed deficit this last year was 136,000. We think that's gonna grow primarily because of the weighting. Isn't that what it was? We looked at the weighting went down, you're serving at the same staffing level, your deficit's gonna go up. And then we've got our percent of salaries and benefits and those types of things down below.
Wait, you said the deficit's gonna go up or the deficit's gonna go down?
Up. Last year it was 136. We're projecting to go to 230.
Oh, I was looking at the line above it, I'm
The
sorry.
line above it, okay, thank you. What the line above it is, it's called SBRC2, and it covers 3 things.
Okay,
If you have an enrollment growth,
Oh, yes,
you
okay.
get more spending authority.
okay.
If you have kids that move into your district, but then open to roll out, you get more authority.
Right. Now, did you say the special ed weighting is going up or down?
The special ed weighting is going down, so you're generating less revenue.
Okay,
Therefore, if you spend the same, your deficit's larger.
yep,
I believe that's what we determined, wasn't it?
We had less kids
Yeah.
too.
We have less special ed kids.
Less weighting. I would have to look closer to see on number of kids. But what we've seen over time is that the matrix that identifies whether a kid is a level 1, 2, or 3 has changed. And frequently, kids that used to be 3 are now 2, and 2s are 1. So we're generating less revenue. And that's pretty much statewide. Although, Iowa hit a milestone last fiscal year. Statewide, special ed deficit broke $100 million. Now, that's not a great milestone to hit, but statewide, it's over $100 million. From 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, when it was 30 million. Other assumptions, we've looked at staff. We show this year a reduction of 4. Now, I think a large part of that was the transition of TLC, is that correct?
Part of that's TLC, early retirement.
Okay, and people not replaced.
Yeah.
Very good. We show adding 6 associates, reducing 1 administrator. That's the staffing plan. Down below, you can see that you have the regular 33-cent board-imposed PEPAL, 67-cent voted PEPAL with no surtax, and the management fund. You can see that the management fund was very high for a couple of years. And now we've lowered that to start putting more money in cash. Those 2 pages are the key assumptions. Questions about those?
So if I'm reading this right, the teacher FTE change. This current year, before in red, you did 4 years.
Correct.
And then we are planning no changes.
Going forward,
Going forward.
all we're looking at is we're planning for some people to retire and replace at a lower cost.
But
But
we're
right
not
now,
doing that.
no. Right now, in the budget, there's nothing designed.
Got it.
These are the results. This is the result of the assumptions we have made. The top line may be the second most important line you're gonna look at. And that essentially is your fund balance. And you can see that because we're putting on more cash, that continues to grow. The other funds, we didn't spend a lot of time on them because the focus really is on general fund. We just made sure they were reasonable, that they're not out of line. Tax rates, we adjusted cash and management to allow for a 1604 tax rate, to keep tax rates flat. Now, the public, generally the public want one of two things. First of all, they want taxes to go down. But if they can't go down, at least stay flat. Don't go up 30 cents, down 40 cents, up 12 cents. So that's why we've projected them flat. The big number is at the bottom, unspent balance. And what you can see is that you entered last year with an unspent balance of $746,000. That's a ratio of 7.7. ISB recommends 5 to 15, not to exceed 25. You can see that your unspent balance continues to grow out to 20, and then it slowly starts to decline. I'm looking out here. This grows, it grows to here, and then it starts to fall. And this is very typical. And here's why. If you don't get enough supplemental state aid to cover your costs are going up more, your enrollment is not growing, it's going to eventually start to fall. This is not a drastic fall. This is something you have to monitor and make adjustments. Is this a red flag? It is not. Probably not even a yellow flag. It's something you need to monitor. If we get zero allowable growth, that number falls significantly and it becomes a yellow flag. The purpose of this model is this, is you know what's coming and you make changes early enough that in the future you're better off. And here's what I mean. If you make a $50,000 change next year, 5 years out that's $250,000 because it repeats itself 5 times. That's why it's important. So I would say if you have some opportunities to save money, maybe somebody leaves, you have the opportunity not to replace, that's a great way to do it painlessly. These 3 pages, the 2 assumptions and this one are the key. And if you were going to look at 2 numbers, it would be this row, which essentially is your fund balance, and this row right here, which is your unspent balance. For all practical purposes, if you're looking at it, if you look at statistically, this is almost flat. Because we could change a few numbers and this be exactly flat. So what it's done is by making the changes you made this year, you've been able to flatten that out and have a good trajectory. Questions about this before I go on? Because that's why I came here, were these 3 pages. Okay. The next page looks at your enrollment over time. Really, it's pretty impressive, really, when you look at it. This is the unspent balance. I got to give you this because this is the official form. When I said earlier that they calculate every year how much you can spend, this is it. This list right here, this is a list that the state calculates that tells Belmont Clinic, here's how many dollars you can legally spend. This is your solvency ratio. You can see that it started to go down. You start to put on more cash and it comes back up. Actually, we've got a ratio up to about 12. We think you're going to end this year around 9.8, but then that starts to build. ISB recommends 5 to 15, not to exceed 25. This is your annual surplus or deficit. In 16, you overspent your cash by $682,000. Why? Because under the law, you couldn't put on any cash reserve. You had to use the cash you had. We're going to do a little bit of the same this year, but then you can see you start to build back up your cash reserve. This is really a critical one. School districts are struggling with managing categoricals, and yours is in pretty good shape, great shape. But what we wanted to make sure was that that unspent balance that we were showing you wasn't off because of categorical spending. So So what we've done is we've taken your categoricals, we calculated your revenue, and we spent it all. So you can see your 4-year-old program has a $21,000 balance. Your TSS 73, that was the one that was really out of whack 2 years ago. Early intervention, you got 61,000. Iowa Core 25, professional development 11, and none on the others. So that's really pretty good. There's a lot of districts that have very high balances. This looks at your miscellaneous revenue. Your miscellaneous revenue is going to jump this year, and that's because you start TLC for $250,000. First year it's miscellaneous revenue, the next year it's in part of the budget. What you said tonight, I've started hearing the last week and a half, is TLC going to survive? It's 150 to 160 million. I would be surprised if they cut it, but when times get tough, and we're not there, when times get tough, those types of things unfortunately end up getting cut. This is your tax rate, which we've shown you before. It gives you a historical. You do want to see this. This is that surtax. Now we have a surtax on, but come time to do the board approve the budget, you'll take a look at it and decide if you want to put it on or not.
So going back to that slide, that surtax is gonna generate around 105,000?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah. Now there's some downsides of that. Obviously, it goes on taxes, but it goes on a different type of tax. But you get it a year late. You know, when you miss a surtax, like you haven't had surtax for next year, if you put that on, you won't get that 105 next year, you'll get it the year after. You'll get the authority to spend it, you just don't get the money.
Can you,
Yep,
can you go back to that again?
yep.
Can you explain again why we didn't do it the last 2 years?
I think that, from my understanding, when I worked with the district, it was to be able to impact the property tax. In two of those years, you can see that in 15, the debt service went up. Debt service went from 107 to 260 or to 269. So I think it was to balance the tax rate. I think that's what it was. Just put more back on tax, put more on property tax to maintain a flat rate. Because, you know, a lot of people will use cash as a way to help manage your tax rate. Well, you couldn't, because you couldn't legally put on any cash. And so that's why that was used. And since no one else was here of the administration other than me, I guess we'll have to stay with that story.
Well, and I know that was kind of a hot topic last year.
I recall that discussion.
The fact of the matter was, we never lost any money because we didn't have a surtax.
No, it just transferred where the source was.
Yes.
So when it went from 117 to 0, the money came then from the property tax.
Correct.
Now we're looking at next year from it going from property tax to here, because property tax is going to take up more cash. That's why. And in the end, the board's got to say yes or no to that.
But if it went to debt service, that meant it went to a different bucket for spending.
It did.
Okay.
It did. Yep, absolutely. That's a good thing to know.
Yeah, so so the surtax, the income surtax actually went to the general fund, but when we switched it from the surtax to the debt service, it was actually money that didn't go into the general fund, but it went to the debt service fund.
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. You're right that there's buckets of money, but essentially, this 117 didn't go away. What happened, that's all coming from the instructional levy.
Okay,
So you got all of the instructional levy.
right.
The difference is how you paid for it. The other funds were varied, management fund and cash, so there could be more put into debt service.
Right,
But it didn't take it from one fund to the other.
okay.
Yeah, it did, this 117,000 is instructional support. And every year you've got the full amount.
So then, when it comes out of surtax, then the property taxes will go down, is that?
Well, the
Correct.
property tax, okay, that's a great question. Why, if there's 105,000 now that's gonna come out of income tax,
Right.
why doesn't property tax go down?
That's-
Because we put more cash reserve on in the general fund. We couldn't put cash reserve on in prior years. Last year, the most you could put on was 57,000. What is it this year, Kevin, you know?
I think we can go all the way up to like 900,000.
Yeah, we didn't put that much on.
We put 550.
Like
Right,
550.
so it's simply changing how you're taxing. But you're right, someone would say, well, if this goes to income surtax, why doesn't this go down? And the answer is because we need more cash. Because over time, you've had good cash balances and you couldn't put on any reserve.
So which
And if you
one-
look at the rate, look at the rate here, 1070, 1086, 1231. So that goes up, but then management fund goes down.
So with that 105,000 will be available to spend out of the general fund?
Yes, yes. The authority comes July 1st. The cash, unfortunately, comes 18 months later after we all chip in.
And that's why we didn't do that. That's another reason for the surcharge, because it took so long to get. And the property tax money was there.
The good thing about your district, though, you had enough cash balance, you didn't need it right away. You had that 18 months because you had a nice balance, and you still do have. Other questions? My recommendation to you would be, as a board, maybe in the next meeting, to say as a group, we accept these assumptions and we'll move forward. Because this is something as a group you need to accept. And you may say, we'd really like to have, I guess I'd say that we need to work with the administration and maybe bring back a 2-2-2-2, and maybe even a 1-2-2, something like that. Okay?
Is it possible to get these in?
There's just a couple pages.
What's that?
There's just like.
I know that, and I
pages
can't
are
figure,
real-
I've seen that before,
real
but
fuzzy.
what I'll do is, I will send you the PowerPoint.
I have PowerPoint.
Yeah, the only thing is when we put them out, we need to put them out in a PDF.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, the company requires me, if I put out anything out, it's gotta be in a PDF.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so like each screen on one,
Right. Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
I'm hitting that almost 50 mark and I cannot.
I don't remember
read
that.
this page.
I've asked that and I still can't read it.
I know.
Okay.
I don't know if I might be able to read it with my reading glasses. I don't know, but right
It's
now I
dark.
can't read, well, I can't even read the numbers for sure, so.
Was there anything else you wanted me to cover that I did not?
So, are, looking where we're at, are we looking at having to reduce our budget?
This plan that we projected does not project any reductions going forward, right now.
Okay.
But my recommendation to you is to monitor it closely. If you get the opportunity to make some changes. Now, I was superintendent for 27 years, and if I wanted to reduce something, unfortunately, the biggest spending is in staff. If I can do that without pink slipping somebody, it makes a much more pleasant world for everybody. So I would start looking for those opportunities. If they come up, you should use them. If you can find other ways to reduce costs, always find ways to increase revenue. Unfortunately, there's not much of that there. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Scared.
Okay, we're moving on to resignations. We have Kyle Wilkinson, assistant high school baseball coach. Kim Cooler, seventh grade junior high volleyball coach. Jerry Lane, junior high football coach. Jerry Lane, varsity boys basketball coach. And of 2016-2017 school year, and Jerry Lane, girls varsity track coach, end of 2016 and 2017 school year.
I have a quick question. Since Kyle Wilkinson is an at-will employee, does he technically have to give a resignation, or is he just doing it as a courtesy to us?
He's reverted the responsibility at the one level, so he can step to the other level.
Right, but
So-
we haven't issued him an assistant coach contract for baseball yet, right?
Yeah, but it's one of those
It's more of a courtesy.
courtesy, yeah,
Right.
probably.
Well, I'm just thinking there's several at-will coaches that are not teachers. Are they required to give us resignations or not? Because I know that we are hiring a head baseball coach, but we haven't received a resignation from the head baseball coach.
Yeah.
So are
As an
we,
at-will employee, we have not offered
Yeah.
a contract and will not offer a contract.
Absolutely.
Therefore, they don't technically have to resign.
So-
They're year to year, right?
right,
Correct.
so
Correct.
Kyle is giving us his resignation as a courtesy.
Correct.
Correct.
That's what I just wanna make sure. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to accept these resignations?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of accepting the resignation of Kyle Wilkinson, Kim Coolers, and Jerry Lane, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Employment. We have Kelly Easker, elementary special ed associate, Steve Doherty, special ed route morning, Eric Doherty, special ed route afternoon, Kyle Wilkinson, head baseball coach, Travis Owens, assistant baseball coach, and Joe Perez, volunteer assistant baseball coach.
Is Todd Guzman using the agenda?
And Todd Guzman as a sub bus driver.
Is Travis Owens the PE teacher?
Correct.
Yes.
Do you want them one by one, or do you want them as a group?
That's up to you guys.
I have a few questions on it, to get your motion for discussion.
That depends on if we wanna do them as a group or individuals. We should do them individually.
Individual?
Okay, we'll start with Kelly Easker, elementary special ed associate.
I move we hire Kelly Easter.
Is there a second?
A second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of hiring Kelly Easter as an elementary special ed associate, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Okay, Steve Doherty, special ed route morning.
Can we do both of those at the same time? Because it's just morning and afternoon.
Well, actually, Steve's route will make him a full-time employee, will then make him offering benefits, so we should actually do him separately.
We just hired him last month as a part-time bus driver.
Yep, and this route will make him a full-time employee.
Okay, let's go one at a time. Steve Doherty, is there a motion?
I make the motion that we hire Steve Doherty as the special ed route in the morning, making him a full-time employee.
Donna, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion?
Who was the special ed?
Wasn't it?
It's a new route.
That's a new route.
Oh, it's a new route.
It's a new route.
We didn't have one before?
No, we
No.
did.
No, it's a second route.
We've had to
Yeah.
add,
Pardon me?
we've had to add.
Remember all the special ed associates I had to hire?
I see. Okay.
And we've got 2 more BE people coming in, so we're,
So was he, what was he, we approved him for before? Part-time? Or just a sub, or he actually had a route, right? It's a sub.
No.
He's a route.
He was a halftime route.
He has a halftime route.
Yep, that has been open for, well, even last year, we couldn't find anybody to take the halftime route.
Okay.
So he
So
took-
this
Steve
makes
took
it
that
so
halftime route.
additional route
This halftime
that we
will
had
make
to
him a
add.
full-time.
And this makes it full.
So half will come out of special ed funds, the other half general.
And do we still run a route to Forest City and back?
To Forest City.
Yeah. Do we have kids that go up to Forest?
Force City.
Mason City.
Mason
Mason
City.
City.
I've got
Yeah.
a student going to Mason City.
Yes.
Mason City.
I used to be Chris Doherty driving to Forest City, but maybe that student doesn't go here anymore.
Okay, we had a motion
Now,
and a
this
second.
doesn't, Robert, maybe it's none of my business about his IFRS, but this doesn't affect that, because he's not taking.
You wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to employ Steve Doherty as a special ed route 1 driver. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Eric Doherty, special ed route afternoon.
I move that we employ Eric Doherty as a special ed route for the afternoon.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Now, does he have any conflict with this and with his other business that we do?
He's been,
Wouldn't make any difference.
He's already been working for us too, right?
Well,
He's
his
a sub.
contract, no,
I mean,
well,
she's
his,
talking about the lawn care.
his lawn business. That's what I'm talking about. There's no conflict.
Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving Eric Doherty as a special ed route afternoon driver, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Kyle Wilkinson.
No, Todd
Todd Boozman, sub-bus driver. Is there a motion to accept that?
I move to accept Todd Boozman as a sub bus driver.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? If not, those in favor of employing Todd Boozman as a sub-bus driver, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Travis Owens, assistant.
Kyle Wilkinson.
Kyle.
Do we need to get you a ruler?
Kyle Wilkinson, head baseball coach.
I'll make that motion to hire Kyle Wilkinson as our head baseball coach. I'll second.
Thank you, Sharon and Laura. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of employing Kyle Wilkinson as the head baseball coach, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Moving on to Travis Owens, assistant baseball coach. Thank you, Laura.
And I'll second.
Sharon. Any discussion?
I do have a question. Means that he's on as an employee, then he will automatically stay as an assistant?
Correct.
He
His
would have
carries-
to resign.
His carries over.
Yeah, this would carry over.
It'd be on his contract.
Yeah, it carries over this teaching contract.
Okay.
If there's no more discussion, all those in favor of employing Travis Owens as assistant baseball coach, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Joe Perez, volunteer assistant baseball coach. Is there a motion to accept that?
I'll make it.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Not all those in favor of employing Joe Perez as the volunteer assistant baseball coach, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Now we'll have Kevin Stein, president about the SBRC application.
This is something that we do every year. We did this last year. parts. One is for increasing enrollment. So because we increased enrollment by 11 kids, if we approve this tonight, we can receive an extra $71,896.40. Open enrollment out, we had an increase of 11, it looks like.
11.1.
Yeah, 11.1, so we can request an additional $71,550.60. And then ELL, we're seeing more ELL kids. So as a result, we can request $40,631.36, for a grand total of $184,078.36.
Why would we not?
Why would we not? Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, there's like three or four things that we have control over on the budget, and this is one of them, so.
Exactly. We have control of it. It would be, this is the max that we can apply for, so I recommend that
Do you need a motion?
we need a
roll
motion
call
and a
vote.
second, and a roll call vote.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
That has, yes.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move we apply for the SBRC money.
Thank you, Jackie. How about a second?
I'll second.
Jane Turner,
Yes.
Laura LaRue. Yes. Teresa Mosman, Jackie Burke,
Yes.
Lynn Lukes,
Yes.
Sharon Barkma,
Yes.
Don Sander.
Yes.
Okay, Kevin, you want to talk to us about the at-risk dropout?
Yes. That is the next 2 pages in your packets. As always, we apply for this every year at this time. We are applying for the maximum amounts. On page 2, line 16, it shows the requested modified supplemental amount, which is $214,291. I would recommend that we apply for the maximum amount, better serve our at-risk and dropout kids.
Now, if we don't use it, do you have to send it back?
And this pays for, the majority of this money goes towards salaries. So-
Which is one of the reasons why one of our counselors is counted as half-time at
Yes,
risk.
exactly, yes.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move that we apply for the at-risk dropout money.
Okay,
And this also is a roll call vote.
we have Jane making the motion and Laura second.
Jane Turner,
Yes.
Laura LaRue,
Yes.
Teresa Mosman, Jackie Burke,
Yes.
Lynn Lukes,
Yes.
Sharon Barkma,
Yes.
Don Sanders.
Yes.
We have 2 early graduation applications. Kayla Noah and Sydney Floyd. Is there a motion to accept these?
I move we accept the early graduation applications for Michaela Noah and Sydney Blake.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We received a letter from Greg Fisher saying that these 2 have already met all the requirements. So, is there any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the early graduation applications of Kayla Noah and Sydney Flynn, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes. Okay, Kate, would you like to start our discussion on the school calendar for next year?
I won't take too much time for it. I'm just gonna hand you, current calendar that we're working on and a blank one. And then I'm just going to simply talk about some things and see if you have any input you wish to throw out as I start putting this together. I didn't want to put anything together at this point necessarily until we've had a chance to talk about it. And then I'm gonna just kind of mention some ideas that I have that I've had conversations with, okay?
Is it something that we could take some time and look at and come
Yes.
back to next?
Yes, we're not making decisions, I'll share some things, my thoughts, and then you can, if you have any thoughts now, suggest them, or, we'll come back, because this is something we'll come back later. I do have a plan, I don't know how it's been done in the past, and how you've done school calendar. I do have, an idea, I'd like to get some teachers involved a little bit to look at it with. I don't know if that's been done in the past, but I do want to attempt to do that. Okay. And I want to get a group, because I value their input, and they have some suggestions to help us through this. Some things that I'd like to look at, and I'll explain why a little bit. Currently, this calendar year, we have approximately 15 early out dates. And Callie shared a lot of the projects and initiatives and the different things going on within our district. And there's a lot going on. AIW, Iowa Core, changing some of the schedules, and teachers trying to learn how to better adapt and adjust what's going on in the classroom to meet our students' needs. We talk about academics and wanting to improve academics in our district. Well, to start, we've got to help improve our teachers and provide them opportunity to do it. Some ideas that we've been throwing around is coming up with some personalized PD opportunities for them and putting together a whole design that'll be focused, that'll have steps, that'll have peers in charge of helping each other to guide, monitor, observe. There will be checkpoints, as well as at the end, when they finish a piece, and a teacher could finish it in 2 months or take the whole school year. And it fits right into district initiatives, district goals. It fits into a personal, professional development plans. And the idea is, when they get to a point, they get to share it out to the staff, and then we celebrate their accomplishments, and then they move on. Trying to get that ownership from them. Well, to do this, I feel we need to look at providing some additional early out time for this. Not just PD time for personalized, but to provide PLC time, so the teachers have chances to work together within grade-like groups, subject, to work on fine art standards and learning those, to science curriculum, to math curriculum, to adjusting and improving that. And something I know a lot of districts do, something that we've just tossed around, I want you to think about, is maybe looking at every Wednesday. Now, I say every Wednesday. No, it wouldn't be every Wednesday, because if we have conferences on Tuesday, Thursday, we wouldn't get out early that Wednesday, okay? But looking at adding Wednesdays as an early out time to provide teachers opportunities to work together, and providing our district leadership coordinators, our TLC coaches, to really start having more of an impact with our teachers, which then ultimately affects our students. And if we want to look at those things, that's an option. A suggestion that maybe I would suggest looking at it as you kind of keep through this. I was looking at, when I was messing around building one without actually providing one, just through the month of March, I had 22 early outs for Wednesdays. In our entire calendar year, we have 15 this year. So already just through March, we would have added 7 additional opportunities for that time for learning. It wouldn't change the hours, so to speak. It's not going to change the amount of days. Hours can be adjusted. It isn't going to affect it too much enough to matter. We're already way over.
Way.
And even doing this, we'd still probably be about 13 days technically over the minimum. Think about it. It is something that could be very beneficial to our district. As we look forward to other initiatives, we think about where we want to go for technology. Do we want to become a one-to-one school? Well, to do that, we got to have time to help educate and provide teachers opportunities to use these things as instructional tools to help as a resource in the classroom, not just it being used as nothing more than a search engine. And we've got to provide those opportunities if we want to look at that as well. So those are some suggestions that I just kind of had that I want you to think about as you look through this. Again, I gave you a copy of our current calendar, and then the other one is blank, just copied off of the Iowa School Board Association website.
So we can ignore the trimester.
That is just their thing they put in, yes. That stuff gets all taken out, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Ignore the trimester, the
All the
midterms.
options.
Yeah.
We would actually put those in based on where we feel it fits within it.
Yep.
And I do have all those Iowa core music standards.
Okay.
I ran them all off and used them when I was still teaching, but you can get them online.
Okay.
And I can email Greg and tell him where to find them.
You know, and another thing too, as I think about these Wednesdays as more consistency for it, is what about teachers that, such as Mr. Cypher, we have one Spanish teacher.
Right.
Who can he work with and collaborate with to talk Spanish? Where these would provide an opportunity to actually collaborate with another district that has the same Wednesday opportunities, and they can Skype, they can FaceTime, they could conference call, you know, they could do some exchanges or whatever over the computer. It provides that opportunity. Or if it's a close nearby school district, we can make arrangements where they're getting together.
I think that's huge. As a square peg,
Yeah.
my whole career and not fitting into the round hole that they all. Almost every school district gets out early every Wednesday, and I know Garner does, and it would be huge for the music teachers, you know, the art teachers, the Spanish teachers, to get together every Wednesday with other people doing the same thing.
Some collaborating.
What's the benefit of a half a day versus, let's say, let's do a whole day? What's the benefit? I mean, it is because the students are here, or, I mean, is it cost, or is it, what is it?
It's contact, it's consistency even through the week with the students. I'm even gonna suggest that it's probably going to help with some parents for daycare. Where as opposed to a full day's cost of daycare, now we're talking maybe a less time, or pay, because teachers are in service, older brother or sister can stay with them the full time before they have to go to practice. I mean, I look at it broad, bigger than just a full day.
Well, I think too, finding enough to keep the teachers busy and engaged for the whole day is probably more challenging than saying, okay, we're gonna focus on these, 3 to 4 hours. They can stay focused and really delve into it for that amount of time. Whereas if you do a whole day, you have to divide it up somehow, and by the end of the day, since it's so different for them, it's really hard to keep them engaged for the whole day.
If you take one topic such as, and it's a topic we'll be discussing as a staff, ELL strategies in the classroom. If you spend a full day on it, it gets long. If you spend a couple hours on it, and you focus in on certain topics within it, then it becomes much more manageable, plus teachers then can go back over the course of the next several days and try and implement those strategies. Because if we don't provide that opportunity also, they never get used, and then they don't become very beneficial in the classroom.
Sometimes I just get a little concerned about taking the student out too, that's all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a half a day, 2 days a month, taking, and
Yeah, well, and what
You
he's
know,
talking about is taking every Wednesday.
every
That's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, it's,
I understand.
it's a lot of student time. or-
But everybody does it.
It doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I understand completely what you're
Yeah.
saying. What we're looking at it from our end is providing the teachers that professional development to help better instruct in the classroom.
Yeah.
Could they do an evening, every other Wednesday?
But then we have-
Is that not,
We have to pay.
But we would have to find money in the budget to pay for it.
even if they're salary?
Yes.
Their contract is
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
Oh, their contract, that's
45 to
right.
345, anything outside of that, we have to provide money.
Well, and,
And
we're,
it's church night. You tell
Well,
those
I'm not
teachers
saying
that
you have to have it on Wednesday.
Well, you just said that.
No, I said, and evening.
No, you said Wednesday evening.
so like, if, how many hours are we serving children right now? I mean, you said something about we're way over, so what is the minimum requirement of the hours?
1,080 hours
Okay,
a school year.
so how many are we,
We're sitting at about 1,170 some.
okay.
It equates to almost, I think, 14 days over the minimum.
Okay.
We don't want to operate on the minimum,
No,
but it allows some flexibility within that.
So like if you have a snow day, you could not necessarily have to make it.
And are your, what you do now, basically talk about TLC, or you just pull in lots of different programs, or?
A lot of it's AIW,
Okay.
the pilot group over there.
And it will just be more of that probably,
Well,
is
it
what
would
you're
be
saying.
a lot more opportunities to actually sit down. So here's an example. Our last Wednesday in service was November 16th. And our next one will be January 4th. So we're going almost a month and a half without teachers having that opportunity to work together, to team up, and actually provide the time. Because if you did a survey of teachers and asked, what's the one thing they don't ever have enough of to do with each other, it's time.
Right.
And if we feel that it's important enough, we should provide, see where we can provide time for them. And this would be a possible option.
And it's nice to be flexible, and if all the schools around us are having early out Wednesdays and we can have collaboration time, then we should do that. And if everybody changes to, we're taking all day off Monday, the first Monday of the month, then we could change to that.
So think about that as you're looking through this and comparing the two. If you have questions, email me, call me, stop in.
Okay, thanks.
The last thing on the agenda is a closed session. Would anybody like to take a break before we jump into that?
And that's true, I have to leave at 9:30, so. Is it gonna last that long?
I was just saying.
Hope not.